Hello Bitzbox, this is Craig from Bitzbox.co.uk here, and this video is going to be slightly different to what I normally do. I'm mainly just going to be chatting to you guys, and this is a video that I've wanted to do for quite a while now, all about how to create your own custom Space Marine chapter. So, things I'm going to talk about in this video don't necessarily have to just apply to Space Marines. You can use them for Chaos or Eldar or any army, really. Space Marines are sort of a most sort of common army in this hobby, so it's just easier to use them as an example. So that's what I'll be doing in this video. I have made a couple of my own custom chapters in the past, and we'll look at them a little bit later as well. And I'll just talk about what sort of things you need to think about when you make your own custom chapter. And yeah, we'll go straight into that right now. So for me, there are three main things that you need. Obviously, the name, the colour scheme, and then their chapter badge. So yeah, if you're like doing other armies, say you're doing Tyranids or something, or perhaps even Necrons, etc., you probably won't have to worry too much about a badge. Just a name and a colour scheme, and you're away really. Or maybe not even a name for a lot of them. Just choose your colours and go. Obviously, there's more you can expand on. Homeworlds, like story, background for them, and other bits and pieces as well. But I'm just sort of focusing on just like the basics for this. And of course, what sort of founding they are as well. Could be something you might want to consider for Space Marines, but again, that's not really that important. But I'm going to focus on these three main things. So, I could try and do them in order, talk about names, talk about badges and chapter symbols and stuff like that, and colours. But they all sort of roll together. Another thing as well, you could have a specific theme, and again the name and the symbol and all that could come from the theme. So bear with me, I'm going to try and do this as coherent as possible, but it could end up being a bit of a jumbled mess. We'll see. We'll see. But yeah, let's talk about names though. So, if you look at like existing Space Marine chapters, there's so many of them will have like 2-word names. So White Scars, Black Templars, Imperial Fist, Iron Hands, you know, you go on forever. Space Wolves. You know, there's so many like that. Not necessarily all of them, but a lot of them do. And so it's worth thinking of different things that you could take words from. For example, you got armies like Space Wolves. Jazz has been doing Space Bears on Tabletop Time. There's like Space Sharks, which are Novakai-Caradons. So you could have space, something animal, for example. And if you go with the animal thing, then you can theme them around that sort of animal. So you could have like furs or scales or something. So you're like, maybe got space lizards or space snakes, you know, something like that. I think iron snakes is one, aren't they? Again, iron can be used. That's like your first word. You have iron. You have iron warriors for chaos, iron hands, etc. Again, I'm trying to be coherent, but I could just be babbling on like loads of different combinations. I wrote a few things down, so there are name generators online that you can use. I've written some things down. Colours can come into it as well. So, for example, you got there's black dragons. So if you know, you could do an army in blue and be blue dragons or green dragons, etc. Again, that's taken not so much an animal because dragons aren't real, but you could take a mythical creature. There's Howling Griffins, black dragons, etc. So you could look to mythology, take some stuff from mythology, and then you could get your chapter badge from that. Other army names I've seen, you got like Masters of, Guardians of, Angels of, Disciples of, Knights of, and then whatever afterwards. So for example, there's the Disciples of Caliban, there's the Angels of Vengeance, so it could be something of something else as well. So yeah, lots and lots of options when it comes to names for chapters. And then lastly, you could just end with something like Marines or Angels, so like Ultramarines, Dark Angels, Blood Angels, etc. So you could add whatever you wanted in there. And so that's a few examples. I mean, like I say, it's just limitless. So chapter that I created, the last one I created anyway, they were called the Emerald Aces, and very simple. They have the Ace of Spades as their chapter symbol, and they're green. So there you go. But I really like them, and I've sort of made them a White Scar successor, so they have a lot of bikes, and that's sort of their playstyle. So that's another thing to think about when you make a chapter, is what their playstyle is going to be like, and then you can sort of build up from there. So if you want to have lots of bikes, then obviously they could be a White Scar successor, or you might want to just go something completely different. So going into your chapter symbols, obviously, if you've chosen your name, then you want something that could be what works well with the name. So, you know, if you're going to have something like angels, you probably want to have wings as some part of your symbol. If you're choosing like an animal in the name, then you probably want that animal represented somewhere on the logo. So yeah, badges can come quite easy once you've got your name for your chapter, or maybe you've got the badge in mind and you get the name from there. So again, like I say, trying to keep it coherent, but it all depends what you go with first and what's going to come next. There's no sort of set method of doing this. Maybe you'd started with a colour scheme and sort of gone from there. So Duncan Rhodes recently put a video up about choosing colour schemes, which is really cool, and I do recommend you search for that and check that out. I've done a video recently about finding colour schemes from like Pinterest palettes, and that works really well. There's loads of ways of just choosing colours. I like to always use like the colour wheel and get like complementary colours. Yeah, you might want to use a colour you've not used for a while or even before, and build an army from that. And sometimes when you've got your colour, you can expand from that as well. Maybe the colour will give you some inspirations, or maybe, again, like I used the Emerald Aces just because they came from the green that I wanted to use. And of course with colour schemes as well, they don't just have to just be one colour with sort of different shoulder pad trim. You can have halved colour schemes, quartered colour schemes. I've never done any of them myself yet, so I think maybe next Space Marine army I do, I'll try a halved or a quartered scheme, because I think they're quite fun. On a whole army that might get a bit tedious, but yeah, never actually tried that before, so I think that's something I should do. And if you guys got any ideas for what colour scheme I could do, or maybe even between yourselves you could come up with an army name and badge and everything for them, then maybe I'll get on it. So yeah, and again, speaking of comments as well, there's probably lots that I'm going to miss in this video, so please, if you have anything to add to it, please write it down below, and then it can make this sort of a good resource for people who are maybe looking for ideas to make their own custom chapter. So I've touched on a fair bit already. I just want to go back to sort of theming your chapter, because this is where it can get really interesting, especially when it comes to conversions and buying bits from your favourite bit sellers, etc., to make your army really more unique than just a colour scheme and a logo. So yeah, we've already sort of briefly touched on using sort of animal pelts if you're based around an animal, such as the Space Wolves are. They have a lot of bits of wolves. It's always funny how they sort of name themselves after an animal, and then they'll just kill these animals to wear them. Or maybe it's an honour thing. I don't know. I'm really crap when it comes to all the fluff stuff, but that's all a really good way. So if you're basing your army off a certain animal, then yeah, maybe have that animal sort of represented somewhere on their armour. It doesn't have to necessarily just be dead pelts and stuff. You could have like, if you look at like Stormcast for example, they have like lions sort of in their armour, which is really cool. So you know, if you're doing like Celestial Lions, which is a chapter I really like and wish saw more of them. But of course, moving away from animals, I feel like I've spoken about animals quite a lot. A lot of armies will sort of be based off certain historical people, for want of a better word. I've completely lost the civilizations, probably a better word to use. For example, I know when the Dark Angels first came around, they sort of based a lot of Native Americans, so they had like a lot of feathers and things like that on them. They sort of moved a little bit away from that these days, which is a bit of a shame. Obviously, Space Wolves are very sort of Viking. They sort of feel very Viking. A lot of runes and stuff. And then you've got the Ultramarines, who have got very sort of Roman feel to them, and there's sort of Roman-style weapons and helmet crests and stuff. So you could look at different civilizations through history. White Scars have a sort of Mongol sort of feel. You don't see many sort of around sort of samurai, so that could be quite cool, having like a load of katanas rather than power swords, things like that. Or you might want something more medieval looking, which you sort of get with the Black Templars as well. So so there's lots of examples of armies who already use these types of themes. So yeah, really, you might have to look for more niche stuff or more lesser known stuff to be a bit more unique, but you can see sort of the ideas that GW have ran with for a lot of their Space Marine chapters. So yeah, as I said at the beginning of the video, this is just the basics just to get you started. There's a lot more you can add to your army, you know, name of their homeworld, the names of any sort of unique special characters, your chapter master, chief librarians, or whatever, and you can add all that. But yeah, if you do like a custom chapter, it's really great fun just making your own custom sort of badass leader for them. And one thing I haven't touched on as well is like sort of their equipment sort of loadouts. You could be themed around certain sort of weapons and stuff as well. When I collected Crimson Fists, I obviously gave a lot of the sergeants and that Power Fists that sort of went well with their theme. Weren't particularly great in the game back then, but it worked well with sort of the theme of the army. So that's something else you could consider. Maybe you like a lot of Thunder Hammers or Power Axes, etc. So, and again, that could come if you're basing yourself and basing your army's theme on like the civilization, for example. If they're going to be based off like samurais, they're not going to be running around with axes quite a lot. So you know that all comes into it. So lastly, I just want to talk about a few resources that you could find useful when it comes to making your own Space Marine chapter. Now, of course, it's always worth looking at other people's chapters and the existing ones to get inspiration. I think that goes without saying. But let's say you've got a few ideas in mind and you don't know what to roll with. Well, there are resources online where you can actually colour in a 2D Space Marine picture to see what your colour scheme would look like there. Saves you having to use expensive models for this. Some people do still like to do test schemes on miniatures, of course, and you could always strip them if you didn't like them. There are also lists of loads of existing Space Marine chapters online, and not just the main GW ones as well, but loads of more niche ones and more homebrew ones. They can all be found. 40k Fandom do a really good one. Annoyingly, they don't have all the pictures just there, so you have to just keep clicking on them. So again, really useful for inspiration and really good for get names as well. You can see a lot of the combinations that I talked about earlier, and then maybe you could take one word from one and one from another and put them together to make your own unique chapter. So yeah, resources like that are really, really good. And lastly, there's websites like ours, shameless plug, where you can buy lots of different bits from different armies to make yours look unique. And that's one thing I didn't touch on actually, which I'll just very quickly talk about. You might want to just look at other GW armies. And what I mean by that is, say an army like the Seraphon, for example, have these sort of Aztec-style weapons, or the Idenef Deepkin, who have that sort of underwater feel and sort of weapons to match that. You might want to take some stuff from those rangers and use bits from them to theme your army. And not just obviously Deepkin or Seraphon, but from, you know, you could do that for like a lot of the Age of Sigmar range or even other 40k armies for sure. And that's something I've seen people do in the past as well. So yeah, I think I'll leave it at that. And as I said, I've probably missed a load of stuff out, maybe even some obvious stuff, I don't know. I wrote down as many notes as I could, but there's always something. So yeah, if there's anything that you do wish to add to this, then do feel free, jump in the comments, and that'd be really useful for anyone who's watching this video. And yeah, I'm actually getting quite pumped to make my own chapter now. Yeah, half the quartered colour scheme, I think. Any ideas for colour combinations and anything else, then definitely leave them in the comments for me. If not, I'll have to come up with something myself. And lastly, you can even get custom shoulder pads made up. Now there's people on eBay and Etsy, etc., who can make custom shoulder pads for your Space Marine armies. So that's one thing to bear in mind if you want to go down that route, is to just keep your chapter symbol as simple as possible, really. Just imagine if it could be in like a silhouette quite easily, because that's what they will essentially use to make these shoulder pads. I know because I've made plenty of custom shoulder pads in the past myself as well. So yeah, I hope you guys have enjoyed this video, and if you have, feel free to give it a thumbs up, and you can subscribe to our channel if you haven't done so already. And if you like these sort of talking to the camera type videos, then let me know what you'd like me to talk about, and I can make some videos on it, I suppose. I don't know. I've rambled on quite a long time now. It's probably taken me 2 or 3 times as long to make this video as it would be for you to watch it. So all what's left to say is thank you so much for watching. I'll see you all in the next video. If you enjoyed this video, then please feel free to subscribe to our channel if you haven't done so already. You can also click that bell icon to be notified when a new video has gone live on this channel. On the screen now are 2 more videos that you may wish to check out, and a link to our Patreon page also. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you again soon.